Hello. Oh, yeah, there you are. So here comes another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2. Thank you for downloading this, the latest in our selection of terrible tales from the sinful Radio 2 listener. We do more bad stuff than listeners to any other radio station. It's been proved. It's official. Anyway, this week we have a concise collection which includes Light Up the Night, Pearl in the Shell, Teach Your Children Very, Very Badly, and Didge Over Troubled Water. Here it all comes. So Zed says, Simon and the Collective, once again, it's the time of year when everyone's talking about the Glastonbury Festival. We just played you some Coldplay from the weekend. And for me, memories of a terrible day come back to haunt me. Every year I try to pluck up the courage to write in and seek forgiveness, but I've always failed until now. This is June 1979, and I was 16 years old. My family and I had recently moved to Glastonbury from London. One of my old school friends, Paul, had come down to stay with me for a week. While we were wandering, even aimlessly and bored, up and down Glastonbury High Street, I happened to notice a poster in the window of the Tourist Information Centre. The poster was an advert for the Glastonbury Fair, F-A-Y-R-E, that kind of fair, and it was for the coming weekend. Paul and I were both into punk at the time, and I noticed that UK subs were on the lineup, which immediately got my attention.
UK, so you know UK subs.
Well,
yeah.
I know. Yes, I don't believe I have much of their back catalogue, but they were big in '79 in a John Peel kind of way. Eagerly stumbling into the shop, we found an old man with a long beard sitting behind the desk, something Glastonbury does very well. I pointed to the poster in the window and said, "What's that all about then?" As we'd never heard of the Glastonbury Fair. He looked over his spectacles and simply stated, "It's a load of long-haired hippies standing in a field twanging guitars," is what he said. Clearly he was not a music fan, but on further questioning, it transpired he could sell us a couple of tickets for £5 each. Different times, Matt.
Well, yeah.
So a couple of days later, we set off to the aforesaid festival, armed with 2 sleeping bags and as much beer as we could carry. We were having a fantastic time, couldn't believe that such an event was happening right on our doorstep. We watched UK subs and loads of other bands, and the sun shined all weekend. Now, everything was going really well up until Sunday afternoon. There were actually 2 stages at the festival. There's the big stage and the cleverly named little stage. We'd been watching some bands play on the little stage, and when the last band finished, the crowd just melted away, and Paul and I wandered up to the front of the stage, which was now deserted. We then climbed up to sit on the front edge of the stage, and we were quite happily sitting there, minding our own business and watching the world go by as the night drew in. After about half an hour, we heard the sound of people climbing around the back of the stage. It was quite dark at the back, and every now and then we heard a curse as someone tripped over a wire or bumped into something. Now, I have to point out at this time, I was normally a very quiet and reserved person. I'd always been the kind of kid to sit at the back of the class and said nothing, and I never did anything wild or dangerous. Anyway, the grumblings and the moanings kept coming from the back of the stage, and we just ignored them and continued watching the world go by. Eventually, one of the guys shouted across to me, "For heaven's sake, can you switch some lights on? It's pitch black back here. We can't see a thing." That's how they talk.
Back then. Over there.
Apparently. Anyway, what?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to let it go. Go on.
I don't know. We'll find out who it is in a second. At this point, a very odd thing happened, and for some inexplicable reason, when I meant to say, "Sorry, I'm not one of the stage crew, I'm just sitting here," what I actually said was, "Yeah, okay, I'll sort it out, hang on." Now, I think at this point my fate was actually set. There was no going back, and I seemed to cross over into another parallel universe, Your Honour. I stood up and walked casually across to the large desk that was covered in knobs and switches. Immediately, my first thought was, oh gosh, this is all a bit scary. But I had already crossed into this parallel universe, and I was now a different person. That's not much of a defence, is it? And I could easily cope with such daunting tasks. The lighting desk consisted of a long row of about 20 sliders, sliding switches that I assumed were there to increase and decrease the intensity of the various lights. Being a logical person, I started at one end, sliding each switch up to see if I could turn on some lights. I did the same for every switch, turned it on, nothing happened, turned everything on, nothing happened. The stage remained in darkness, and the band members kept tripping over stuff and cursing in that South London voice. I then switched my powers of problem solving into turbo drive and quickly deduced that there was no mains power connected to the lighting console. Bending down and looking under the desk, I found the biggest pile of intertwined electric cables imaginable. By now, of course, there was no problem that I couldn't handle, so I scanned all the cables until I found a solitary plug sitting next to an empty socket. That's it. Problem solved. I slowly inserted the 3-pin plug into the 3-hole socket, and that was when my what?
I can see what's happening here.
My parallel universe exploded in a shower of blinding, flashing light. My ears were ringing with the explosion from the sound of about roughly hundreds of huge lights that had suddenly illuminated at full power and then all exploded at the same time.
Oh, no.
It might have been just a few, but it felt like hundreds as the shards of glass shattered everywhere. The brightly lit band members of, I think, psychedelic space rock outfit Mother Gong stood completely shocked and bemused. Mind you, they might have been shocked and bemused anyway, and I just hadn't helped very much. By the time the tinkling sound of broken glass had finally settled, me and my mate had already leapt off the front of the stage and were halfway across the field and disappearing into the crowds. I realised that there would probably not be any forgiveness from the collective, and I know that it's a terrible deed, but I do need to ask for forgiveness from Michael Eavis, all his people at Glastonbury, and the good members of Mother Gong for the damage that I caused, and I can only offer that I was just truly trying to be helpful. But he plugged the thing in, he plugged in the 3-pin, and it had been unplugged for a reason. And the reason was, if you plug it in, it's going to blow up.
Well, the thing is...
And it did. What?
He left all the faders up. The thing, that's the problem, is I was with him and I was in this lovely story where Zed wanted to be more than he was and he wanted to be part of it and he's really enthusiastic and he thought, God, I'm on the stage and I'm messing with faders, but that's it. He left them all up. He caused massive amounts of damage. I mean, well done for working out the difference between the sound desk and the lighting desk. That was great. It was all going very, very well. But he left all the faders up and that's the big mistake. Don't mess with things that you don't know about.
Put the
that's
faders
the thing.
back down again, then plug it in, and then maybe got it anyway.
However, it was Glastonbury. It was the end of a Sunday. No other bands were to go on stage, and I think Michael Eavis would have forgiven him. They can get new bulbs. It would be fine. So, because you're full of dreams and hope, and you were young, you're forgiven this time.
But Mother Gong, or members of the UK subs, might have been badly hurt in this, and I think you have to take the health and safety angle, Matthew.
Well, it was the 70s, so I'm not going to take that angle.
Okay.
I think, why haven't Mother Gong got their own lighting technician? He should have been at the desk. Turns out he wasn't. Turns out Mother Gong were just relying on somebody passing by and doing the lights for them. Well, if you're going to take that kind of laissez-faire attitude, Mr. and Mrs. Gong, this is what happens.
Is that who it was?
Lights,
Was
yes,
it Mr. and Mrs.
Yes, it
Gong?
was them. And this is what happens. So you get all you deserve, frankly. I mean, thank goodness Zed was there to be able to turn on the lights, even if some of them exploded. So definitely forgiven.
Oi, Gong!
Yes.
Get your own
Get your
staff.
own lighting technician.
Employ
Yeah.
people.
Incorrect.
Don't rely on the YTS kid.
Yeah.
I think we put a 12 on this. I mean, that's maybe a little bit, somewhere between a PG and a... I'm just saying, that's all. Steve has sent this one in, second name withheld to save further embarrassment, he says. Father Simon and the Drive Time Confessions Collective, I'm begging your forgiveness for a moment's inattention that has been weighing heavily on my conscience for the past few weeks. Rather than dwell on the unfortunate consequences of my carelessness, I've decided to get this off my chest as soon as possible and hopefully gain your understanding. My problems start on a beautiful, bright and sunny afternoon in May this year. My wife, Fiona, and I, walking along a wide beach of clean golden sand with our black Labrador pup, Toby, all of us enjoying the crashing of the Atlantic waves on the shore and the salty tang of the West Cornwall air.
This already sounds great.
Was
Why?
there ice cream involved?
No ice cream involved?
Yet.
Just yet. Why is it sounding great?
Just because I wish I was on that beach.
Excellent. No, that would be fabulous, wouldn't it? Bit windy at the moment.
Yeah.
The tide is on the turn, exposing a fresh crop of shells as the water recedes. A little way offshore, seabirds are diving into the clear blue water, emerging seconds later with fish wriggling in their beaks. Toby, our Labrador pup, is enjoying his first day on the Cornish beaches, bounding in and out of the waves, running across the sand. At this time of year, the busier Cornish beaches do not allow dogs, leaving the quieter beaches for dog walkers and more, let's just say, the more enthusiastic sunseekers.
What?
Matt's looking puzzled.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to pause now until Matt's got it. The more enthusiastic sun seekers.
Oh, I see. Right, I do. Yeah. Okay. No, yeah, I've just seen. Yes, you've got the mime.
Bobby's
now.
doing a
mimed it.
mime there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I've got it.
I mean, duh.
Yeah. Right.
Fiona, Toby, and I we've been walking since mid-morning, setting off from the idyllic Lamorna Cove, where we're staying for the week, and heading along the Cornwall coast path towards Land's End. After a good lunch in a small village pub, we rejoin the coast path and soon find ourselves walking westwards along the beach. Soon it becomes apparent that many of the beachgoers that day are either a little absent-minded or keen to avoid those awkward strap marks that ruin the look of a cool, summery top.
Well done. We're all there now.
Right.
We've all got it now. Well done.
Having grown up in Cornwall, this is no great surprise to us, particularly so far west and away from the main tourist beaches. Dressed in sun hats, sunglasses, polo shirts, shorts and walking boots, we do feel a little conspicuous, however, so we keep our eyes focused out to sea and hope that no one is staring at us. In the distance, we spot a woman walking along the shoreline. She is shell gathering, wearing a bright green top with long sleeves, and that's about
Phew.
it. No, that's about
Oh.
it.
Just a top?
At this point, I should point out that Toby is 11 months old and is a very well-behaved and obedient pup. He's a big boy, strong, not chubby, and has been well trained by Fiona. His floppy, lolloping puppy run is what gives him away as a puppy and not a full-grown dog.
Okay.
By now, we're in the midst of many happy and liberated beachgoers.
Liberated. Well done.
I am confident that no lead is required to keep my well-disciplined Labrador
No,
under control.
that's fine.
The simple command, close, is sufficient.
Yeah, of course.
But Toby is just a puppy, not a full-grown, fully trained dog. At this point, everything slips into slow motion. The green top-wearing, tanned shell gatherer spots a particularly interesting item on the shoreline. She bends to pick it up. Toby sees the bare-bottomed beachcomber picking up something that she might throw for him to retrieve and sets off in his floppy puppy canter in her general direction. "Stop!" I shout. Toby follows on regardless. "Close!" calls Fiona.
Yeah.
It's too late. The shell-gathering beachgoer is blissfully unaware of the big Labrador bounding up behind her until Toby surprises her in the way wet Labradors are apt to do. At this moment, the gorgeous semi-bare shell-gatherer stands bolt upright and emits a shriek that can be heard from Porthcurno Beach to Land's End. Shells fly in all directions. She turns around with an expression that is in equal parts surprise, shock and outrage. To see me holding the dog lead and wishing the sea would roll out and take me with it. I expected to be going directly to jail with no opportunity to collect £200 on the way. Then the shell gatherer spots Fiona and they exchange "You can't trust men with dogs" glances. Toby bounces around, collecting shells and dropping them at the shell gatherer's feet. She picks them up, pats Toby's head, then adjusts her hemline, and Fiona and I wave embarrassed goodbyes to our new best beach friend. But obviously, Father Simon, I need to beg forgiveness from the shocked, semi-naked shell gatherer for allowing my part-trained puppy to disrupt her peaceful coastline walk, and from the West Cornwall beachgoers that day for having their afternoon disrupted by a surprised scream that was audible all along the south coast. Many thanks from Steve. You see, you can understand it from Toby's point of view. If someone is bending over to pick something up, they're going to throw it for you, and so you go on and you
That's
provide
right. Oh, I see. That's right. Yes.
the encouragement.
Yes.
And you go and make friends in only the way that dogs
And
do.
dogs have a particular way of making friends with their noses. Maybe we should all try that.
No!
I don't know.
No.
Anyway, Sister Bobby,
Dear,
what'd you say?
I think that's my best one, actually, my favourite one. I love that. I have a dog and he gets me into all sorts of trouble. The thing is with this is that beach is a public place that you all share, and there's likely to be, there's likely to be some comings together that are quite surprising. See, the thing is, if you walk along the beach without your underbrooks on, there
Yes.
might be some surprises that you hadn't really, appreciated. And it was open to all, and let's face it, just a little bit of understanding. You do get my understanding, Steve. It's one of the best stories. I'm trying to hold it together.
To be honest, as she's not wearing any lacy undergarments, then you kind of Who knows what's going to happen on a
Well,
beach?
the thing is you don't invite that. What I'm saying is a shared space, and puppies don't understand.
But the puppy thought she was invited.
Anyway. So Steve, absolutely, you get my understanding. You are forgiven. Great story.
Brother Matthew.
Yes, this is one of those times where I am very grateful that I'm not a particularly liberated or enthusiastic sun seeker. Quite happy to have tan lines if this is what happens. Thanks very much.
You get a strappy thing on you.
Oh dear. Here's the thing, though. I think if I had been walking my Labrador down a beach and then appeared all of these people who were enthusiastic sun seekers, I think number one, I'd have turned around and left. But then if I were going to go ahead and be all liberated and pretend that it's all okay, then I would have put my dog on a leash at that point. So I'm going to say not forgiven, because the rather reserved Brit in me thinks that, frankly, this is all a little too continental for my tastes, a little too bohemian. No.
We don't expect that kind of behaviour
if
here.
you could just put something on. So yes, I'm not going to forgive.
This one comes from Dave. Thank you, Dave. All right, Dave. Dear Father Simon and the... I think that's a word. Anyway, the forgiving few. He just made up a word.
Okay.
Listening to the confessions every day, most of your sinners have had years for their guilty conscience to grow until the burden becomes unbearable. My confession, on the other hand, is from Thursday, June the 16th, 2016.
Wow, 2 weeks ago.
That's about exactly right. 2 weeks ago. I have committed a most grievous crime. I have lied and misled a child.
Oh.
Already I can hear Matt forgiving me, as his life's mission
done.
seems to be to lie to children. What a noble vision that is. What do you want to do in life?
That's my life mission,
To lie to kids. But listen to my sordid tale, and I'm sure even Matt will be able to dredge some compassion for the wronged child from his hardened heart. Call me Dave. All names have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. And today's my daughter's 9th birthday. We shall call her Davina. A little background before I recite my tale. When Davina was about 6 months old, her grandmother gave her a cuddly toy, which was being given away free with a popular brand of nappies. How very generous. Anyway, it was a yellow star and had 5 blue hands and a cute, smiley face. And he was christened Mr. Twinkle. Okay?
Yep.
Nice picture. Davina instantly fell in love with Mr. Twinkle, and as we used that particular brand of nappies, she soon ended up with a small collection. Because Mr. Twinkle was such a success, it became traditional over the ensuing years to give her a twinkle on her birthday and eventually for Christmas each year. So she's ended up with about 15 Mr. Twinkles, and they are all equally loved and adored. Does she have a favourite? No, she doesn't. She loves each Mr. Twinkle the same. Yes. The promotion with the brand of nappies ended years ago, so it's kind of difficult to source new Mr. Twinkles, but recently my wife bought 2 from an online auction website. You know the one. These duly arrived and were hidden from little prying eyes. We now arrive at the fateful day, June the 15th. My wife is wrapping Davina's presents, but horror, she is unable to find the new Mr. Twinkle. My wife and I turned the entire house upside down searching, but to no avail. I cannot overstate how much my daughter loves Mr. Twinkle, and she will be devastated if she does not receive a new one on her birthday. Is this absolutely clear?
Yeah.
Yes. There is only one choice open to me, Father Simon. I go into Davina's bedroom, I find the newest looking, fluffiest Mr. Twinkle, and I kidnap him. We wrap him up, and this very morning, we gave it to her as a present. Yes, that is correct. We stole her toy, we wrapped it, and we gave it back to her. Saving money. Her look of joy when she opened her new Mr. Twinkle wrenched my heart and brought a tear to my eye. How could we deceive such an innocent, joyous little girl? How can I live with the guilt of such a heinous, depraved act? I am sure we will ultimately discover the hiding place of the elusive new Mr. Twinkles and surreptitiously sneak one into her collection, but even then my conscience will not be clear. I think I am beyond redemption and will go to my grave a sadder, lesser man, says Dave. Over egging the pudding a bit, Dave, I think, at the end. But it's an interesting idea. Haven't got the thing that my darling daughter would like. I'm going to take something she's got already, wrap it up, and give it back to her. But she was very pleased and she was very excited. So maybe it's all okay in the end. Parents, eh? What do you think, Sister Bobby?
Well, I think as long as this little girl can't count up to 50, then she's all right.
Well, I would have thought, she's 9.
That's what I'm saying. So as long as she can't count up to 50, she will never know. Assuming she can, she may already know. And she may already think, oh, okay, maybe I've miscounted. So maybe what you've done is you're given your daughter a complete insecurity about her ability to count, because for so many years she's had this many and now she's got the same number. So I'm sure there's some confusion there. I think what should happen is when you find a new one, when you find the other ones you've hidden, in the safe place, like we've all done, I think you should basically come clean. If you come clean, then you're forgiven.
And it's not going to happen. She's absolutely not going to, because then she will never look at her parents ever again. Brother Matthew.
I think Davina, now being 9 years of age, it's high time Davina was taken to one side, and Dave basically said, "My dear, it's time you understood the realities of commercial promotional offers put together by nappy firms, and Mr. Twinkle, they're not making them anymore. I'm really sorry about that. There you go." It's one of those life lessons we all have to learn at some point.
You're just going to have to live with it,
You're just going to have to live with it, I'm afraid. Mr. Twinkle, there's not going to be any more. He's not coming back. They've only made so many, and your poor mother has been on this auction website trying to hunt down
Plus,
the
how
last
many
remaining
twinkles?
Mr.
How many
Yes,
twinkles does
exactly.
a child need?
Do you need more than however many you've got? No, you don't.
There are
my
people
dear.
in other parts of the world who would love just one
They'd
Mr. Twinkle.
love just one Mr. Twinkle with probably one of the arms missing. You've got 42. So for that reason, I am going to forgive, because yes, time for a chat with Davina and the realities of promotional stuff.
Tonight's confession comes from Horatio. Thank you, Horatio. Dear, you'll notice the theme, and you'll notice why he's called himself Horatio in just a moment. Eternal Father Simon, strong to save, hear me when I cry to thee. I write to beg for collective forgiveness following an unfortunate incident afloat some 10 years past. The tale is set around Cowes on the Isle of Wight, where I worked for a large maritime training academy. This academy was blessed to have plentiful floating resources and personnel, and was well connected in many aspects of maritime industry. And so, Father Simon, it was perhaps less bizarre than it might sound when I was contacted by the captain, we're going to call him Captain Nemo, of one of Her Majesty's Royal Naval vessels, who wished for some assistance with a local training exercise. Captain Nemo and his crew were returning to their home port after months at sea aboard their minesweeper, which we will call HMS Nautilus, which kind of fits with Captain Nemo. And he wanted to arrange for a surprise welcoming party as they crossed the Solent bound for Portsmouth. You need a naval captain's voice now, please, Father Simon. Blimey. Willa Vickers' voice. It's all the same. The men will be relaxed and off their guard, and so I wanted you to attack us in order to test our security response actions, because this is Dad's army, and it's...
Yeah, no. Should have gone with Ray Winston.
Captain Mayo.
Okay, Anyway, so he thought they might be off their guard. This needed to be a final test, and that was what they were after. Okay, I thought, but what do you actually want me to do? Well, why don't you drive at us as fast as you can in a small speedboat or something, and then just chase us around a bit? Better still, he added, find a broom handle or something that looks like a weapon and wave that around for good effect, see what happens. Well, not something that happens every day, but could be a bit of fun. I thought, to get me away from the desk for a while. Nemo told me that he would be passing Bramble Bank, which is a navigational hazard, at 1400 hours, and that I should engage him at that time. I decided that I might need some help with this task, Father Simon, and as a senior member of the organisation, I commandeered a rather young junior instructor by the name of Pistol Pete. I can't remember why he was known as Pistol Pete, as he didn't have a pistol and he wasn't called Pete. But, unfortunately for him, he was now my pre-assigned rampaging crew member for the forthcoming voyage. I explained to Pete what we were off to do, which seemed fairly straightforward to me. Pistol, however, stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. Well, off we go then, son. Oh, and what have you got that might look a bit like a weapon? I asked. Well, there are a couple of old flags and some other bits and pieces lying around, and then I noticed a rather fine-looking didgeridoo leaning against leaning against the wall behind the door. Well, says Horatio, why wouldn't there be? There you go, Pistol, grab that, let's go. So Pete reluctantly collected the didgeridoo, and away we went to board a 6-metre rib, which is a rigid inflatable boat, perfect for the high-speed action that was about to unfold. As we headed out to the pre-arranged rendezvous point, I told Pistol that we were looking for a minesweeper that would be near the Bramble Bank at 1400 hours, as was my brief. And as we headed into open water, sure enough, there was an unsuspecting minesweeper slowly cruising past the brambles. I checked my watch. We were bang on time. OK, Pete, I'm going to drive at the front of the ship at about 30 knots while you wave your didgeridoo at them. Look menacing.
What could possibly go wrong?
Pete swallowed hard, and with more look of trepidation than menace on his face, we charged. We careered at the bow of the vessel, passing only a few metres away from them, shouting loudly, with Pete brandishing his didgeridoo. No reaction at all. Round we went again, shouting louder, circling and swerving with great gusto around the foaming deep. Absolutely no reaction, nothing. They're not exactly on the ball, this lot, are they, Pistol? I observed. After a few minutes, we decided to stop and see if anything was happening. We sat a few metres off their stern and observed. Nope, nothing doing at all. Then a stern-looking sailor we saw, standing on the very aft of the ship, staring down his rather large nose at us. He wasn't smiling. Then he spoke to us. Do you know how stupid that kind of and we obviously shouted. Do you know how stupid that kind of driving around a warship is in this day and age? You could get yourself sunk, you could.
That started off one way and then went another, didn't it?
Well,
chameleon of voices.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's a future career.
Thank you. That's the stern-looking sailor voice, by the way. Yeah. Now, he was clearly missing the point of our exercise, and either that or something wasn't quite right, says Horatio. I looked for the vessel's name on the stern just to reassure myself, but naval ships don't write their name on the back like other ships do. They just have big letters and numbers that don't mean anything to the general public. "This is the Nautilus, isn't it?" I shouted. He didn't answer my question, probably not correct security procedure, but his silence was deafening. And then I noticed a white-shirted, shiny epauletted gentleman standing outside the bridge, waving a handheld VHF radio and pointing rather sharply at me. I decided I wasn't keen to chat, therefore started to retreat cautiously and slowly in the opposite direction. When half a mile ahead of us, we saw another minesweeper. Well, what are the chances? I chuckled to Pete. Pete wasn't chuckling. "OK, Pete, get your didgeridoo out again. It must be that one." There you go.
My goodness.
By now, the boy Pistol was as green as a seasick parrot and visibly shaking. "Charge!" I said once again. We perilously engaged one of Her Majesty's ships at high speed. Only this time they were better prepared. As we approached, a loud alarm sounded. The ship lurched towards us, and a small army, or navy probably, of black balaclavaed men ran to their stations and took up positions behind an intimidating array of fearsome rotating gunnery. Pete, by now a gibbering wreck, had to be pulled up from the deck of the rib in order to wave his instrument, and the dogfight ensued for about 10 minutes of heart-thumping military aggression and impressive ship handling. Eventually, Captain Nemo appeared on deck and waved his thanks, so we headed back home for some tea and therapy. Anyway, Father Simon and your courageous clergy there, forgiveness needed not from the big-nosed sailor man who should retrain as a nightclub bouncer, nor from the captain of the unsuspecting and quite frankly wrongly positioned first minesweeper, but obviously from the traumatised Pistol Pete, who I'm sure really enjoyed the adventure, albeit retrospectively, but who has never played the didgeridoo since, which is probably no bad thing, and still has panic attacks when he hears one. Bless you all, and thank you for your charitable and benevolent consideration. Signed, Horatio. Well, who would have thought that you'd get a minesweeper and a didgeridoo in one confession? Probably for the first and only time. Sister Bobby from the Priory.
It's a lovely story. It made me laugh. However, I don't think I can forgive you on behalf of Pistol Pete because, let's face it, Captain Nemo, you really should know better, and it should have been more distinct about, you should have known the potential for another ship like yours. You should have said, look for the green one, or the one with the white flag, or you should have made it more distinct and made it not happen. It's basically Captain Nemo's fault, but also, I would have thought, Horatio, that you'd have asked a few more questions, but then you didn't really know, so you are not forgiven on Pistol Pete's behalf.
Let's see what the novice makes of it.
This is like Dad's naval army, isn't it?
It
Who
is.
would have thought there was a minesweeper regatta? And what is
along with the gin festival?
The whole thing is just remarkable. Captain Nemo, I'm sure if he's not retired, maybe he should be. And with great gusto, Horatio took it all on board. Pistol Pete obviously traumatised, but it wasn't Horatio's fault at all. And the stern sailor on the stern, I think, just adds to it all. They were lucky they didn't get blown out of the water. I'm definitely going to forgive.
Thank you very much indeed. And now...
Yeah,
Brother Matthew.
So,
what do you think
what are
about
the chances? Two
didgeridoo?
minesweepers, who'd have thought? Who has a didgeridoo hanging around?
Quite a lot of people do.
Well,
Bobby's hands up, see, she's got
Bobby,
one.
you've got a didgeridoo just in case in the office.
Two didgeridoos.
Two didgeridoos
In your face,
in
Williams.
the travel office, just on the off chance that someone needs a didgeridoo,
says
and
it
another
all.
one for a spare. I'm going to say this is a bit of a weird one because I don't see why there are two minesweepers just off the British coast. How does that work?
What do you know about
together? My experience of the Admiralty is extensive, and I don't think they should have been two at the same time. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive, because you know what? Who saw that coming? No one.
Well, they were this week's confessions. If that stirred a thought in your heart about something that you need to tell me, you know there's something. It's confessions@bbc.co.uk. We can change all the names. Everything is going to be fine. You'll feel so much better. There are no prizes, by the way. Just a liberated soul. Anyway, more in a week. Don't forget you can catch all the best stuff on the iPlayer from the last 30 days. On Monday, Lauren Weisberger joined us to talk about her latest follow-up to The Devil Wears Prada. The new one is called The Singles Game, Very Tennessee. That's as in lots of tennis, not from Tennessee, obviously. On Tuesday, it was another Tunes Day. Don't miss that. That was rather fine. On Wednesday, we were thrilled with Michael Morpurgo, the nation's favourite storyteller, talking about his latest book, which is where he gets all his inspiration from. And on Thursday, Nige, well, what a queue there was, because Nige was serving up Peking duck. Little Chinese pancake festival is what we had. That was rather popular. The details can be found on the Radio 2 website. Just head for the Thursday episode page, toggle down, take a few hours till you hit the recipe. Everything is straightforward from there. And if you've made it this far, can you just tweet me hoisin sauce? Thanks.